Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my returning guest and my longtime friend and one of my favorite conversations to have, the lovely, the talented Miss Jennie Gilbert. How you doing, Jennie?
Good. Thank you, Tyler. It's so cool to be back again.
We were chatting. It's been so many, we've lost track. I'm officially going to say that we've lost track. I think it's
don't count.
I think it's around 7, but whatever. Every conversation is built on the last. They've all been amazing. And guess why we don't run out of things to chat about? Because leadership is ever changing. It's ever challenged. The level of discernment, judgment, self-awareness that's required for leaders today in this tumultuous times of, for everyone listening, this is March 4th. It's the day that the tariffs landed as this is happening, whatever that actually means. So I think every leader out there, anyone who's involved in any part of the business community, the huge unknowns and that pressure that it puts on us, the leader's job is never done, but yet it's always loosely being redefined on a daily basis. So here we are yet again to talk about leadership and its many things that it encompasses. Sorry, that was a long intro. I don't normally do that. Jennie, you are, besides being amazing, one of my favorite people to talk to, facilitator of corporate training, School of Business at SAIT. So for anyone who doesn't know you, give us the 2 minutes. What is your role all about and what keeps you busy on a weekly basis?
Oh, 2 minutes. I spend a lot of time with corporate people, anywhere from C-suite right down to individual contributors, conversations on what I like to call them nothing sensible and no numbers, but then people get a little fluffy in there. So let's call them human skills. So anything that involves a human to a human, and Tyler, you and I have said it too many times, humans are messy and complex. So these are not easy skills whatsoever. And these days it's all focused around leadership. So the title that I hold probably is Leadership Development Specialist.
Nothing sensible, meaning meaning the numbers, the metrics, the spreadsheets, all things you can do with AI these days. But you know what AI isn't super great at? Having a conversation with one of my team members.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, we'll see. Not that a lot of us aren't using it from an advisory perspective. Have we stopped calling these soft skills?
It would be nice, but no, they're still soft skills. Okay. Lots of people lean into power skills, human skills, essential skills.
Power skills. I love how we have to make it that kind of a word, right?
Like really, let's figure out how to work with the person to your left and the person to your right and the person in front and behind of you, maybe.
The people you surround yourself with.
Yes.
And we were joking off the air, and something I love to talk about is why are these things important? It's because we've agreed to work together for whatever reason, for compensation, to move ourselves forward, to feel that we're contributing, whatever it is. The fact we've agreed to work in this group, it kind of behooves us to then focus on these other skills. This isn't armchair psychology. This isn't being a counselor at work. This is, we agreed to get something done. Let's make it as effective. And I want to be blunt. I want to reduce friction. I want to make it easier to work with the people around me and easier for them and easier for me, like to get done all these, what are often a mountain of tasks that we have laid out in front of us, right?
Yes, absolutely. And our aim always, it doesn't matter what kind of organization that you work for, your aim is performance. Like everybody is at work in business to perform to one degree or another. So even from deciding what that performance looks like to how we're going to do it is essential. And I think the piece within this human part, we are designed, rightly or wrongly, towards efficiency. And humans, we're not efficient. So, that building relationships, that's not efficient. That takes time. That takes conversation. We talked a little bit off air, collaboration, that takes time. It's not necessarily an efficient process. Worthy, yes. Rewarding, yes. Will you get a better performance? Yes, in most cases, but it's not efficient. And so I think that's what makes it harder too, because we actually have to pause, be aware, understand.
It's not efficient. It's, as you and I have talked many times, and as my audience knows, I am obsessed with curiosity. And a stat that I've said on before, it's a Harvard Business Review article, so instantly it gives me credibility behind this. But the number one reason curiosity gets sidelines in organizations is a US-based study because it takes too much time. That's another way to say inefficient. But yet we've all been involved in a project where we didn't ask the questions that I'm not even going to say the right questions, the questions that needed to be asked sooner, that the day before deadline, you're like, oh shit, I wish I would have known that.
Yes.
Because now we are bearing down. Now we really have no time. As my CFO calls it, the dripping roast. So you always have this huge roast at the start of the day, but 12 hours later, you open the stove and go, I don't know if I can feed these 12 people anymore. Because it slowly erodes once you get closer to the deadline. And I think that our world of project-driven timelines, I think everyone, most of us can relate to that, because no matter what career you're in, somewhere there's a project that has a timeline that you wish you had more time, you had more money, and you had more resources to maybe ask those questions sooner.
Yeah.
What is it? If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 59 minutes understanding and 1 minute solving. Or there's some quote about that somewhere that I just butchered.
I think it might even have been Einstein who said it, and so true. Like, and it's even what questions are you asking? You know, you think of the person who rushes in and says, "Are we ready?" And there's only one answer to that, compared to even how ready are we? And then there's, you know, your people have an answer. And we forget that. Your people, they are people, and they have a perception, an answer, a reality. So that curiosity is, well, I don't need to tell you this. It's so healthy, but so often so missing as well.
I do also treat it as a daily practice, because like a good workout, like a good yoga practice, like a walk around the block, it's a practice. If you fall off one day, you can pick it up the next day. And every day won't be perfect, and I think that's okay. I can talk about curiosity all day, but we have a topic that you and I discussed offline, which I think has been misunderstood, has been misused, has been wielded like a sledgehammer, has been wielded like a feather duster. The concept of feedback. Beware of the person that asks for feedback. They might be just searching for compliments. I've often asked for feedback and just hoping someone would tell me something positive. And this one we can get into fixed versus growth mindset. So we'll touch on that too, because I know we're both a fan of that thinking. How do you even define feedback in the corporate? Let's give it a definition. Let's set it up, and then let's take it apart a little bit.
Oh, great question. So feedback classically, and I think you said this, like, it's just, for most people, it's a lousy experience. You say the word feedback and you can feel them back away from you. Yeah, you can feel the hairs go up. You can feel the allergic reaction. And so what is it? I think our aim is, if we're going to get it right, our aim is to improve, is to help. Our aim is to help, and our aim is to improve. Classically, or that kind of legacy leadership, old style, go back 10 years, might even be less than that, unfortunately. The aim has always been to prove something. So as a leader, I've been trying to prove myself. If you do it my way, you'll be fine. Whereas if we flip that switch and look at it slightly differently, the aim is to improve the task, the issue, the person, the problem, like whatever that part might be. And that requires us to look at it very differently.
To help improve on your way, not just to make you do it my way, to really paraphrase that or simplify that. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Because I really like that.
Yes. And the sort of short version I use very often is outcome over ego. So old style feedback is very ego driven, and new style feedback is, as you said at the beginning there, let's get to that outcome. Where are we aiming to go to? So if I'm giving you some feedback, and I'll even switch that a lot of times nowadays and say feed forward. Because if we're feeding forward, we're elevating towards the next step, the next right thing, the next way within there. And a little to your point too, if my feed forward or feedback, whichever word you want to use, does catch you having done something right or well or better compared to last time, it will stick for much longer, and you've much more of a chance of repeating it.
I love the forward aspect. I'm a marketer. I love a made up term that we can then make mean something. I love it.
Yeah.
This really resonates for me in the and versus but category.
Yes.
I really like what you did here, but
game over.
I think the NLP joke is everything before but is bullshit.
Yeah.
Your hair looks great, but that dress, what? Whoa, smack! Like don't or hey, wow, I love that suit, but that tie is terrible. Versus, I love what you did here, and based on this client, it really makes me think we could have maybe in the future add something like this. Back to even using the word future, the power of and versus but in that sentence. I always one is additive and one is detractive in my mind, just to make that binary.
Literally, and so true. I think there's actually scope to take that word but away. Like I use it very, very rarely now. And people listening, like, what's your emails? It's the first place to start. Just read a classic email and you'll find butts everywhere.
Email is a great place to practice your communication because
It
you're
is.
not in the moment. Take a little bit of time. I think there's a reoccurring theme underpinning. Like I wrote a couple emails this morning to clients and they were like, hey, we have to take a project in a certain direction or this. I just was aware how much time I took and how many times I reread it and I went away and had an espresso, came back, read it, changed it again because they mattered. So I invested more time. I was surprised at the time I invested, but I also felt very confident when I pressed send. And I had to edit my own work, which caused me to walk away for a minute and come back to it. And it took 10 or 15 minutes to write each one of these emails because it mattered and they were worth it. And I put in that extra time, but I got hung up on the words because words matter.
Yeah. And we should add in at this point too, that however is just the fancy version of but.
I heard a great one the other day. However, it's just a butt that went to college.
Okay, we'll take that one. I'm borrowing that. That's excellent.
That might have found its way into my new book, which I'm starting to get confident saying that out loud.
Jennie,
Thank you.
Coming soon.
Yeah, however, it's just a butt that went to college.
And the and to go back to your point, because it's a really good one, and elevates us, like, and puts an elevation into the conversation. It gives us an opportunity, but extinguishes everything.
Well, and is a plus and but is a negative, right?
Yeah.
If we're just going to back to measurable. Let's use additions and subtractions and divisions, just to try to talk to me about feedback. I grew up in the era of feedback sandwiches. Say something positive, say something constructive in the middle, say something positive again. Completely been debunked now as a waste of time, but it tends to have stuck around because I think people love the fact that they have a formula. Is that still floating around? That's just the one that I pick up on? There's probably a lot of other, easy paint by numbers feedback models that you've seen out there that are causing more harm than good.
This sandwich is so far past its sell by date, as you said, and we did.
It's at the 7-Eleven in the back corner of the fridge. Don't eat that sandwich.
Don't go there.
It's bad.
But why don't go there? Because people get really stuck on that, and we loved it. To your point, there was a process, and there is positive in there. So it wasn't about the other person. It was very selfish and self-serving. I feel good if I can offer you a positive. Here's the part where I'm going to deliver whatever I have to deliver, and then I'm going to offer you another positive. But I've asked audience after audience after audience, which part will you take away? They're going to take away the middle. They're going to take away the filling. And so now you've just wasted 2 positive moments. Now, people feel great when they're offered appreciation, recognition, validation. We're not talking about a ribbon for showing up. This, genuine, sincere recognition, again, it is the elevator. It adds to people, and we show up differently, and our confidence is changed. So what we want to do is save those positives and then deal with that middle. And what's that middle? And the old version of feedback, that middle has focused on blame, shame, judgment, sort of telling.
All those lovely traits.
and that doesn't work for anybody. So how do we shift that? And if you still want the easiest structure, what went well, what will make it even better? But the piece that I find is crucial these days, if you're the leader, is why are you talking? You've hired an adult with a skill set who's doing a job that they chose to do. Like, you don't fall into a job. Well, you can fall into a job by accident, but in most cases, you've gone through an algorithm, 3 interviews and 2, video conferences or something to get that job. And if it's also
not your first job,
no,
you've been around. It's not. I know. I watched 2 of my team members, both senior, one give other feedback in an email, and the response was, "Hey, thanks. After 20 years, yeah, you're right. I don't know how to write an email." I was like, "Oh," and one was being. Nobody was being purposely shitty, but I kind of watched the narrative. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks Tips. Good thing you were around, or I would have never made it out of the parking lot. There was a little bit of that going on too. And then they both joked, hey, sorry, not my, got it. But it was funny to watch. And that happens all the time. Sometimes, I don't want to say maliciously, but with the intent of like, let me show you how much I know. Back to
and
who's
there we
giving
are
what,
proving.
right?
We're proving ourselves. We're proving how good we are. And that, I think it's Marcus Buckingham who said it. Nobody wants your advice. Nobody wants your suggestions. And they definitely don't want your feedback. So we have to find a better way.
Screw off. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You said something earlier that I want to grab onto. the feedback sandwich made it comfortable for the person who was delivering it.
Yeah.
How important and how, like, I give feedback. It's something I'm comfortable with. I love direct conversations. I've worked on it. If I feel uncomfortable, it's probably going to end up being uncomfortable for both sides. If I go and go, hey, I just want to chat with you, but I've spent time, and I've had, a friend in business who was very much had a bit of a people pleaser tendency. And it was interesting until he understood that not giving feedback was actually more unkind. He couldn't give it. He was paralyzed by the fact he didn't want that person to feel bad or not like him. Once he then flipped it and go, my feedback is actually because I care about them and I want to elevate them to get, once he changed his intention and mindset, all of a sudden it shifted. But up to that point, he was paralyzed. He basically would refuse, or it would be so uncomfortable for him. I'd talk to the person after and they were like, what the hell? Like, what was that? What just happened? What did we just talk about? He would leave the room figuring he gave feedback, but the poor other person would be like, what the F just happened?
Yeah. Like none the wiser.
Yeah.
So as humans, when we're entering what we think is a difficult conversation, we butt up against some pretty big obstacles. One is the one that I actually have this intrinsic desire to be liked. And if I offer you something that's uncomfortable or a little difficult, or whatever that might be, you might not like me. I don't like that. I like to be in control. And one of the problems with a conversation, this is why people will often talk and say the same thing 5 times, is because the minute I stop talking, like if I ask you a question,
I got to sit with that.
I give the control to the other person. I've no idea where we're going next. And if you think about most feedback, especially when it's given from a leader, they come in with their experience, their version, their way, and they think they know all the answers. And then they say to the other person, what happened here? Right? Ask the question, stop talking. Their version could be really, really different and unexpected. And when you sit in growth mindset, okay, well, now we both learn from it. Now we're in a conversation. And not all of us have that ability.
You disrupted my rehearsal.
Yeah.
Because I rehearsed that feedback and you told me something I didn't know. And to ignore that now is, you can't. Right?
No.
Oh, that's really interesting. You lose control of that narrative of the this, I, you will do this versus, hey, are you curious about my perspective of what I saw during this and maybe why I wrote the email that way or why I thought that this was the deliverable or whatever the case may be. Oh, that's really powerful versus just coming in with a monologue.
Yes. And when we think about feedback, like one of the questions to ask yourself before you go in is, who will this benefit? And there's only one answer to that, and it's not you. It isn't self-serving. If it's not benefiting the other person, then it's not a great conversation to even begin. We need to think about it a little bit more.
And is this something in your experience that's just a new concept? Because this comes back to what you said earlier. This is so much of humanity. Like how comfortable I am with myself, like where are my fears, where are my past, experiences, where are my traumas, all the things that are around self-awareness and being really clear, like, I'm comfortable in these situations. Why is that? There's a degree of reflection that happens there that is not always top to everyone's radar. And secondarily, a lot of us don't take the time. And we would say we don't have the time, but I'll argue, it's when I worked in fitness, I'd say, I didn't have time to work out. I said, did you brush your teeth today? They're like, well, yeah, obviously. I said, have you ever been in a rush? They go, yeah. Did you still brush your teeth? They said, well, obviously. I said, yeah, because it's important enough. So just tell me it wasn't important enough. They didn't like that because the self-admission that had to come with that was very uncomfortable. That was kind of one of my power moves as a trainer back in the day.
I'm thinking about my lack of exercise yesterday too. Thanks, Tyler.
You know what? That is a great example of something that we do as leaders. That wasn't about you, but we make it about us, right?
Yeah.
And I'm playing with that because that's what happens in leadership. We absorb this as take it on as this personal. We'll talk about your fitness after, Jenny.
Yeah. Okay, then.
But that's the narrative that goes on inside our crazy heads. And I say crazy as a messiness fun. Sorry, not to minimize mental health. I'm meaning that in a playful way, to be super clear.
Yes, yeah. I've lost the train of thought now because I'm stuck on the fact.
Now you're brushing your teeth and working out.
So I actually know it was a self-reflection, wasn't it? And that piece is key. Like this self-reflection, self-awareness. If you watch the skills being attached to leadership in 2025, maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, self-reflection, self-awareness is rising. It's constantly on the rise. And it started being a big part of the conversation. And it's very misunderstood, and it lies in with feedback, because when we think about self-awareness or self-reflection, there's 2 kinds. So there's the internal self-awareness. How well do I know me? Do I know what my strengths are? Most people don't. That's a surprise to a lot of people. Do I know what my weaknesses are? Everybody can list you 101 weaknesses. That's a problem. Do I know what my values are, my triggers, all of those things, internal self-awareness. And then there's the external self-awareness. So I get me, theoretically, but do I understand how others perceive me? And we can't really do that without entering into the conversations of feedback, feed forward, whichever way we want to put it. So the two sit really closely. And then there's that infamous study, I think you and I might have talked about it before, is Tasha Eurich did it, where she studied self-awareness in people. And, it's a classic 90 plus, it might be 94% of people say, yep, I'm self-aware. I know who I am. And the honest truth is only 12 to 15% of us are. So within all of that, most of us are lying to ourselves about ourselves every day anyway, before we even start to try and have conversations with other people. So it's more complex than we actually give it credit for.
That it makes it, I'm not going to lie to you, it makes it feel a bit more even daunting. I'm like, ooh, it just got really heavy and almost felt like a mountain too big to climb, which is not the case because we've all agreed to work together in these environments that we call work. Sorry, collaborate in these environments we call work. So we've already agreed to go on the journey together. Yet we're coming in with maybe both hands almost tied behind our back, or at least my hand and a couple fingers on the other hand, in terms of how the me shows up, or the I shows up in that dialogue with another person. And if we perceive that as uncomfortable, guess what? It's probably going to be uncomfortable. If you think you are, therefore you're right kind of mindset, right?
Yes. And so, really, if you wanted to take this on, because we need to change this. We need good, constructive conversations. And not just leader to their people to people, and leader to people, and people to leader. It's not from the top down. It's everywhere.
Yes, we're not talking about the command and control structure. We're talking about more of a spider web.
Yes. And often, the people beside you can give you better feedback than your leader can anyway, because they work with you. They see you. They understand it. And so
oftentimes that person will then talk to the leader. Then the leader will try to now steward that feedback on. I had that happen the other day where someone's like, I need this and that, and this person did this. I was like, I'm going to be candid. I really need you to have a chat with them.
Yes. Go there first.
I cannot do that. I'm like, I support you. I get it. I hear you. You are heard. You are understood. Here's some ways to think about it. Here's the value that this person is providing and maybe you're not seeing. And I kind of made in this case, I was blunt, like, you're both grown-ups. And they were like, yes, I know, you're right. I needed you to listen. I needed to feel heard. I will go now deal with that. But that took an hour to get to. I could have easily jumped on my white horse and rode over there and effed it right up.
There we are.
5 years ago, Tyler would have probably jumped on that right horse, and that was an error.
Yeah. And there's the piece of efficiency.
The horse turns black on the ride over.
The horse was done.
Yeah.
So it's self-awareness first, but always after self-awareness, self-acceptance. So if you find conversations difficult, okay, well, that's where the work is. How are you going to set yourself up for success? And we don't do that enough in our feed-forward feedback conversations either. Like, we usually just wait for performance conversation, and then all the feedback comes at once, like a great big tidal wave, and we're drowning, and we don't know which bits to take.
It doesn't work. I'm a coaching fan, not a once-a-year feedback fan, or even quarterly. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. So if we can get, the cadence of frequent conversation, keep it focused, like just narrow it right down there, and then always future orientated. Where are we going next? Or what's the action that I can work on? For those who like the sort of the checklists or the models.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's push to the extreme. I'm an engineer, maybe I'm an accountant. I'm picking on certain professions because they love their spreadsheets. And if you can put it on a spreadsheet, I can relate to it. I can work with it. I feel comfortable. Is there more? Do you have a formula to set this up so that at least the parts that are the messy bits have a little bit more of a structure to create comfort for those of us amongst us who would like a framework?
So yes, and touche. I think the first part is flip the switch, and so where I would go to is if we're changing the culture around feed forward a little bit, then let's change how we do that, and let's actually start asking for it. So to our point, most of the people that we work with are adults. It's not their first rodeo, even if they're brand new in the workplace. Like people know where they need feedback, or where they'd like it, or where they'd like that feed forward. So let's start asking for it. And when we start asking for it, the structure in that sits. The worst thing that I can say to you is, Tyler, can you give me some feedback, please? Like, you're just like, oh God, where am I going to start with this? Whereas if I say, Tyler, over the next few weeks in our meetings, I'd really love for you to notice how I welcome people in, or how I transition between agenda items, or how I close a meeting. Like, we're often useless at finishing meetings. So go from full size to snack size, like one thing or two things, whatever works within there. And I'm asking you to notice. And when I start asking for feedback, if I have a meeting room, and these days, I don't know, 6, 8, 10, 12 people, am I only asking you? Maybe I'm asking 2 people. And maybe then I'm going to get a little bit more, because often our feedback's like it's like an Amazon review, isn't it? Oh, I love you, that's cool. Or I don't like you. And so when we get it from different perceptions, that's information that we can use. And if we really want to elevate this a little bit better, I will tell you how to help me receive that feedback. So, in my world, I'm good with a conversation. Let's just dig in and have a conversation. But lots of people would rather receive an email first, a well thought out, to your point, but an email with examples of what they notice. Then they have time to digest that, and then they're ready for a conversation. And those two worlds are really different from those who are happy just to speak and figure it all out, rumble through it, and those who would rather think about it, get their questions for clarifying, and then engage in the conversation.
I heard synonyms. I heard help, support, and guidance instead of feedback. I love what you said about snack size. And I also heard specificity. Good, bad is like ASAP. ASAP is not a deadline. It doesn't mean anything. Good, bad. What do you mean by good? It's kind of the lost language trap of like, oh, you did a good job. I like what you called out, the specificity around the transitions or how I finished. And did you feel that set people up? And being very specific and thought out, you're also doing yourself a favor and also the other individual. And I love the idea of like, no, I want ongoing guidance. I want feedback. Let's openly talk about it. I remember years ago in the fitness world, selling gym memberships. One of us would sit in the other office with our back to the office where the person was selling a membership. Then after, we would debrief on what did you hear and where did you think it went off, or where did the person lean in?
Cool.
Without any visual, it was fun. But there was also a permission that we did it for each other. Yes. And 6 months later, our sales, it drastically improved because it was a feedback cycle that was prearranged. It was structured, and it was like, let it rip, because I was in the conversation. So I missed a whole bunch of what was going on from the other room. It was a really fun exercise, but permission was given before, and the door was clearly open physically and metaphorically to that. And, the help or the elevation of both parties involved, because we were both good at different aspects of the sales pitch, if you will. It was a very fun little armchair. We just did it because we wanted to get better. There was no master plan.
but wouldn't that be brilliant if we all just engaged in having that as part of our culture because we just wanted to get better? And the minute that we
done this podcast over, yes, I agree.
Like if work is about performance, and it is, and we were all obsessed with getting better, whereas what we often say is, oh yeah, you hit the ranking, you're good, and you're not good enough, and my focus is here. No, it's not for one or the other. Everybody can get better, and it can be a very fun, like the process that you just described. This doesn't have to be awful. It's how we set it up in our team and what we do with it that's crucial. And the other part is that really important ratio that I think is called Gottman's ratio, Tyler, 5-1. So catch people doing it right 5 times to every one constructive. Sometimes it's Marcus Buckingham again, he calls it a priority interrupt. Like sometimes there is somewhere where we have got to go in and have that conversation. But even that conversation, when you're well practiced with your frequency, your focus, your future orientated, there's no need for cruelty. There's no need for shame. Is it a tough conversation? Yes, maybe. We're adults. We don't like to get it wrong, but we do, and we will.
You know what makes it tougher? Leaving it go.
Oh, then it grows, and then it's a big conversation, and then we're in that world. 2 out of 10
becomes an 8 out of 10, and now somebody's getting terminated, and it's like, how did we get here? Why did we get here?
Exactly.
And the first time you tell that person there's a problem, they're like dumbfounded because they didn't have any idea. Who's responsible for that? Is this really just about a coaching model versus a command and control model? And I don't think it's one or the other. Sorry, I made those A, B, but I'm seeing top-down command and control, feedback, be more like me, versus coaching, which is a constant dialogue around help, support, guidance. Hey, this could be better. That was amazing. That's a coaching mindset when I think about it, just in my own definition of it.
Yes. And you know, you and I have joked about this. The memo, or the funeral, if you like, for control and command happened ages ago. Some people just apparently missed it.
What's the joke? It died years ago, but it's taking a while to get rid of the body.
Something
it's a bit
like
crass,
that.
But I've heard a joke about, like Yuval
Yeah.
Harari makes a joke about that around religion. But I will not repeat that openly.
No. And so then the coaching bit, but then I see people get a little paralyzed in, well, I'm not a coach. I don't have that skill set. And this is where some of the very cool work that you've done comes in. Coaching really, you know, lean in with curiosity, right? This isn't just about you. Lean in with that curiosity. Aim to help the other person, and know that in most cases your advice is the last thing that they want. So
that right there is so uncomfortable for some leaders.
It is, so yeah. But
I was told, because I'm in this position, I have to be the smartest person with all the answers.
Oh, there you go. That should have had a funeral too, because we just don't have all the answers anymore. We can't have all the answers, but that's really difficult for some to get. But that,
was it? One, having information is knowledge, but asking questions, it creates wisdom. Or I read some quote the other day that made me land on it. Like we get so much out of an interaction like that, but yet we still have this belief, or this remnant, or this, it should have been into a funeral, that having all the answers somehow is what justifies us as a leader. Where any of the coaches that had all the answers, I probably didn't stick with. But the coaches that challenged me with the best questions, I worked with them for years off and on.
Yeah.
I'd circle back to be like, I got a situation. It's funny, I was writing the other day, working on the book and thinking about this senior business leader I met years ago. And he seemed to ask me the dumbest questions. And when I was younger, I was always puzzled by these seemingly very successful people that asked what I thought at the time, and I'm saying dumb specific because at the time I was like, but yet half an hour in, all of a sudden the questions got more complicated, because they used the beginning to just understand my business and understand what I was going through and what I was living. Then all of a sudden they're like, well, have you thought about this? And when questions start turning to advice embedded in a question. And it wasn't until years later I looked back and went, oh, I see what was happening there. But yet sometimes my own imposter syndrome, my own need to have all the answers didn't let me ask maybe the silly questions that I should have been asking to understand the fundamentals of what's going on in their world, that then allowed me to maybe pose more interesting, more dynamic, more expansive questions that I couldn't do if I didn't start from a platform of knowledge in the first place. But if you're too scared to ask, you're never going to get to like the next level of the Mario game, or whatever metaphor you want to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And we never understand what it's like from the other person's perspective. We think we do. And again, another old practice that's useless is, well, I'll just put myself in Tyler's shoes and I'll get it. I've no idea what it's like to be in your shoes ever. And so that platform, that perspective taking to start with, but again, that takes time. And so we have to have some good time for those conversations. And in leaders, and this was, I think, our last conversation, Tyler, when leaders are running on back-to-back meetings.
Working leaders.
How do we put this in? How do we make this work? And so there's thought and intention within there, but it's healthy intention.
How much factor, rapport. It's a word I've been playing around with, when you feel comfortable. And some people often ask me on the show, like, oh, how do you get into these conversations? And one of my things that I think I'm good at, especially after doing 600 some episodes, is creating a high level rapport very quickly that allows us to then, it creates permission. The door is unlocked now, we can actually have a conversation. And sometimes it's about 12 to 18 minutes it kind of takes before I'll ask a question that I know is a bit deeper. If I go into that too soon, it's assuming a false rapport, and there's a, whoa, hey, you reached over for the kiss too quick on the date. Like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do that. And I think as leaders and with our teams, oftentimes we're so busy off in our worlds doing our thing. And then all of a sudden we come together, and with rapport being absent, it's really hard to get into quote unquote a real conversation quickly if you haven't done the pre-work. Back to your having time, making it important. No, I'd much rather go play in my spreadsheets than have a lunch or have a coffee and create that rapport almost when it doesn't matter. Because it does matter, but then so you can have it down the road, but it's almost too late if you don't have it when that moment of the big feedback conversation arises.
Yeah. And so the underlying piece in that, we call that social capital. And social capital, again, it's not an efficient process. It takes time to get to know the human beyond the job title. And so in our highly pressured, like on demand all the time workplaces, we've become transactional.
Yeah.
And you know, where your skills lie is the conversation that happens before we get in here, and we build that social capital. We know about each other's lives to the extent, you know, there's always a boundary on this, and everybody has a different boundary.
Yep.
But social capital is something that is so valuable to leaders and teams. Like, it's not just the leader again. To build it, I've become a huge advocate of something that we call connect before content. So at the beginning of every meeting, connect before content. And connect before content, if you've only got 2 minutes, you've only got 2 minutes. Like, it's 2 words around the table from each person, and there's a way to do that.
Yeah, the check-in, the quick check-in.
Yeah, if you like, yes. And then, or, you know, maybe you've got a little bit longer, and maybe that's a different version of the way that we run it. And these aren't necessarily all fluffy icebreakers by any stretch. Some of these are pretty deep conversations, but they allow us to get to know each other beyond the job title. And so within there, going back to what we were talking about before, if we're going to be offering feedback, what a great connect before content is, you know, what's I'm making this up as I go now, but you know, what's the best feed forward that you've ever been given, and what helped it to stick? And if you have that conversation around the table, everybody is learning about everybody. Yeah.
And again, I'll put forward my view, and please correct her. I also don't think that means you have to know about their kids, their lawn, their dog, their family, where they're from. It's just who they are in the context of, I also believe in the symphony of self concept. The self that shows up, that they show up to work with, and there could be multiple versions. That's the self I'm getting to know. I don't have to pry. I don't need personal information. I have so many friends that I know tons about who they are as people, but I don't really know their background. It's funny, when I first started doing the podcast, I was interviewing people that I thought I knew, and then quickly an hour later, I'm like, I really knew nothing. But yet I would have called that person a friend. Like, there are different levels.
Yep.
And I think keeping it in the context of, back to your point, this 100%. Is work. We're talking in the context of a work environment that we've all agreed to show up here and trade our time and our energy and our heart and soul sometimes for a shared outcome.
Yes, 100%. And, you know, to your point about different versions, one of the self-awareness assessments, if you like, that I use, and we use at SAIT too, is Lumina. Classic self-awareness personality piece. But within there, we talk about 3 different personas. And this really lives into what you were saying. So there's an underlying version of Jennie, and that's Jennie on a Sunday, no filters, totally in my comfort zone. That Jennie doesn't show up, and nor does anybody want it when I go to work with.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun. But I hear your point.
It might be funny.
Sunday but Jennie shows up to Monday workshop as a whole, but if workshop Jennie shows up at home, that might also could be jarring as well.
Yeah, that doesn't go down too well.
Why does mom have a microphone, and what is she doing?
They'll tell you I don't need a microphone. But then we have the overextended one, and this is really important too, especially in this feed forward conversation, because if I'm overextended, think stressed over capacity, or even just in that conversation, sometimes when we're in a conversation, somebody presses a button, and if they don't know you, they don't know they've pressed that button, and we change within there too. And so that's what we're talking when we get to know people. So to your point, you know, you don't want to talk about your family and your kids, then don't. That's where the boundary sits.
When we say getting to know someone, I just always want to clarify that that's not there. You have to define what that means. It doesn't always mean all the things, right? That's okay.
Yeah. And that's totally okay. We all have places that we're happy to chat about.
So what I'm really hearing around feedback is, what's your intention? Is it to show them what you know and embed them to your way, or is it to elevate them? Have some self-awareness, some self-reflection of how are you showing up? What is your intention? And connect before content. Put in the time, invest. If you truly care about elevating that person, I use the word care very deliberately, invest before that conversation comes up or is needed or is required, so that you've got that capital already in place and you go in with a little bit more rapport. And the coaching model to me just makes sense. Not to be so overtly trite about it.
It does. And the capital affords us to disagree. The capital affords us to,
I love it,
to have that friction, but the friction becomes intellectual friction as opposed to social friction. And
Have
it's
the freedom to disagree. That's powerful right there. That's so much. My business partner always jokes. I said to my kids, you can ask me whatever you want, but I can also say no.
No, always. No.
Feel free to ask me, but still I'm your dad and I will say no based on what, and that's a different context, but I always made me laugh. I learned my parenting skills from indirectly through my buddy as I have a dog and she gets whatever she wants. So I clearly failed at that one.
You know what though? There's truth in what he said too. When we think about that feed forward conversation, so it's kind of two-way. You offer me feedback, right? In every feedback or feed forward that I receive, it's on me to remember there's a truth of some kind. Like there's a truth in there somewhere, because we don't always like hearing what we're hearing.
Yep.
So find the truth. But the other part to remember is you can offer me everything that you want. I decide what I take or don't take.
Yeah, I like that.
So receiving, it's a choice. And often in our old style of thinking, when we give it, we just believe, well, because I've said so, you'll do it. And
which is a command and control model way of thinking, right? Yeah. What about asking permission to give feedback, or asking, do you have time? Do you have a moment? Tell me, because that was one that floated around for a while too.
I like that. That's a basic. There's some basic manners
just
in there.
Good humanity, just good being a human.
Yes, absolutely. But also, especially today, not everybody's in the right place, and sometimes to show up at work actually is the most that I can do. And so if let's take leader to team member, can I offer you some feedback, or could let's have a conversation about this? And they turn to you and they say, I can't do that today. I know your people. You know the difference between I just don't want to talk to you and I'm doing everything I can just to be here today. Let's have that conversation tomorrow. So we want to be aware of where people are at and what's going on for them.
I would say that that's already a win, that they feel comfortable enough.
Oh,
to me, like
hugely.
That's a gift.
Hugely. Yeah, 100%.
That they feel comfortable enough not to just bow and take it when they're in no position to, and it won't be absorbed at that. Like what's your goal? Is this to elevate me, or is it to actually elevate you? If it's to elevate you, then I need to do it on your schedule, mentally and, psychologically, all the things.
Yeah. But the other part, the funnier part to this is colleague to colleague, unless it's set up as part of our culture. Whatever.
Yeah, we've been kind of talking about it in a hierarchical way, but peer to peer.
So, peer to peer, or even we see this friend to friend, like, Tyler, can I offer you some feedback? And you're like, no, thanks, Jenny. Right? It's so
Jenny, I would never
hard.
say that. I would always be open to your feedback.
It's so hard to walk away. But the minute somebody says no, thanks, then the answer's no, like leave. But our egos are like, oh no, I can offer you this. This will change your world. This is a gift. Like the feedback isn't a gift either. Like years down the road, we might say, oh, that was the best thing that person said to me. But at the time, it doesn't feel like a gift. And so I think asking is a really, really good idea, because it either opens the door or it slams it in your face. And if you're the leader and it's your job to have the conversation, well, then we got to go back and we got to open that door a little bit. But if it's just friend to friend and they don't want it, then they don't want it.
and keeping your mouth shut when they say no is really tough.
It's really, really, really hard.
I've been working on this in my head for a week. It's perfect. I can't wait. You're going to so benefit from this feedback. I do love the idea, though, even as a hierarchy, like back to rapport, control, and autonomy and agency. We need to have feedback. We need to have this conversation. We're going to have it. When will that work for you? Like there is a way to give agency and autonomy back to that individual versus it's now and it's what I want and you're going to get it whether you like it or not, versus I've got something that's important in the context of work, back to performance. This is a conversation we need to have. When would you like to set it up in a time that works for you? That's such an easy way to give agency back to that individual.
Yes. And I'd offer to set them up for success. These weren't your words, but if we don't quite get those sentences right, Jenny, we need to have a conversation about this. We need a little bit more information, because otherwise I'm going to go home worried. Okay, what have I done wrong? What did I like? Until do
not do that on a Friday afternoon. I just suggested. Yeah,
you just ruin the weekend. And
my Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTJ. So if you tell me we're going to talk about something and we're going to talk about it later, I will lose my mind.
Yes, yeah.
My J goes off the chart, and I've learned it over the years. That is the value of some of those things. That changed my behavior. Well, maybe not. Probably not. Did it give me an awareness of that? What I was feeling, I'm like, oh, that's just my J running wild right there. And if anyone who's done Myers-Briggs. Also, an ENTJ will always try to work into a conversation that they're an ENTJ. So I apologize for that as well.
Self-awareness,
I realized why that was
self-acceptance.
twisting me around the axle when someone would say, I need to chat with you, but we'll talk later. I'm like, oh my God, you need to tell me now. Like I'm going to lose sleep if you don't.
Yeah.
Don't drop that Friday at 1:00 and then walk out of the office.
Yeah. So, and that comes back to what we said before, self-awareness, self-acceptance, you know that's you. And so there's the social capital. Like if you had a leader, they need to know that. And we don't always share that information, but that would be good information to share.
As a leader, I do think it's also, you're setting the tone of what's safe and what's acceptable. And this is the way we act around here. So leading by example, as I always joke, isn't the best way. It's the only way. You made the comment and I love it because back from our first conversation, I remember probably halfway through, I'm like, yeah, Jenny, but what about self-awareness? What about, like you said, the last couple of years that's getting traction. Are you seeing people pursuing that as on their own? Are they getting coaches, counselors, doing therapy? Like half the people I know are working with a therapist and it's completely changing the way they see the world. Is that where that's starting to manifest? Because you're right. I became aware of it, but it's still a skill and it's still a journey that I'll probably be on for the rest of my life. It's not a 6-week course. And check off self-awareness on the list. Because one level of self-awareness leads to another. It's a trap, by the way. Are you seeing leaders, once you take the blue pill, are you seeing leaders going out and pursuing that more on their own? Like how are organizations supporting and setting up leaders? Because that is still a very personal journey and 5-year leaders can all engage in that same journey differently.
Yes. I think it's a mixture of everything. I agree with you. There seems to be more people seeking outside guidance, outside help, be it coaching, therapy, whatever it might be.
Whatever you want to categorize it as.
There's a version of that. But I think the awareness is coming to the fact too that I can do a degree of this by myself. And I only need, I liked what you said around, did you boil the kettle? Did you brush your teeth? And really, you can do this in minutes. And you've given that example before. I forget what you were looking at, but were you adding to the meeting or subtracting from the meeting? I think that was
my imaginary my checklist that I kept for about 6 or 8 weeks on my desk. That took a minute or literally it took 30 seconds after each meeting.
There you go.
And after that took something qualitative and turned it into something quantitative. Within a few weeks, I'm like, this behavior is not adding.
There you go. Yeah.
This needs to stop.
Yeah, there you go. And the one, we promote, I think I said it earlier, what went well today and what would make tomorrow even better. And I like those kind of basis. And you had the adding and the subtracting because we do still tend, again, it's another legacy practice. We tend to look for fault and weakness. And that's not always helpful. Like find the good, find your strengths, find your platform where your confidence comes from. Because the aim is to drive that inner motivation and you're not going to get there by putting yourself down. Just because we've talked about, no blame, shame and judgment outwards, you don't need it inwards either. And so talk to yourself the same way that you would talk to somebody.
Oh, those inner monologues sometimes are harsh.
Yeah, like why? But we do it all the time.
Oh, the why is a whole other, that's the can of worms. Yeah, it's the journey, I think a lot. And some people go, I don't know what you're talking about. Others are like, I remember a podcast I did with Kyle Schufelt, 2-time Olympic gold medalist.
Very cool. Mm-hmm.
Kyle, very self-aware individual, had a sports psychologist working with him when he was like 10 or 11. And he physically in the podcast, it was one of my early days and they just get described the little perfect with the perfect shorts and the perfect hair and the perfect sitting on his shoulder, just constantly telling him he wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
The perfectionist, the perfectionist Kyle versus the, I did the best I could do today. And that was my best, not, you're not perfect. And for years, he goes, he goes, he's still there as he looks over to his shoulder. But that awareness at such a young age of working with a sports psychologist, and obviously when you take it to 2-time gold medal, it's a kind of an irrefutable strategy. I think we all have the good and the bad for some things sitting on the shoulders, right?
Yeah,
and those internal monologues can be, have you talked to anyone else that way? You get slapped.
Yes. And so don't talk to yourself that way. Like you deserve as good as you would give to somebody else.
Yeah. Like, and I think those are habits, those are past experiences. There's so many layers that, are past the scope of our conversation or certainly my skills. I know that 90% of the time my behavior outwardly is directly correlated to my understanding of how I navigate those voices.
There, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a journey because if it closes more doors than it opens, maybe you need to kind of reset the lock kind of mindset. And
to your point, as adults too, that's that little voice when it was, negative to us for so long, often kept us on the straight and narrow when we were younger.
Yep.
But when we get older, all it does is narrow everything down, and then we can't escape it. And so we want to open that back up again.
Asking an 8-year-old voice for advice.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
You're right. And you're right. Most of those, now we're getting to that side. Most of those are behaviors or ideas or concepts that served you at one time, but have immediately outstayed their welcome.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of just the like, hey, yeah, that worked. It's maybe no longer working, and that's okay. Versus just adding to the right, wrong, good, bad. Oh, that voice is bad. It's just no longer serving me, and it's probably closing more doors than it opening. I tried to get away from you because the more you attack it, the more it fights back.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's just like you and me. Oh, tell me I can't do something, I will dig in my heels proper. Like, yeah, I really appreciate it. We always end up with a very, I think, almost very esoteric way of thinking about this. But it's coaching, it's self-awareness. It's are you adding to that other person on to be a whatever different version of themselves, not just a reflection of you as the leader who's supposed to have all the answers.
Yeah.
I think if leaders would get that, even fundamentals as an idea, things would change.
Big time. Yes. And not to be afraid to change the process. Like, stop waiting and start seeking. Go looking for it on your terms. That's the joy of it. You get the agency and the control right back again. But in the process, set the other person up for success too, because it's hard for them as it is for yourself as well.
When was the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. But if not then, how about today?
Yeah, that'll do.
That keeps coming up lately for me. I don't know how many times I've used that metaphor. Jennie, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for, I believe we are building our connection before content, and each conversation I believe gets better because we've put in the reps.
We have. It's a pleasure always.
Every time I enjoy it. Jennie, thanks so much. If someone wants to learn more, obviously they can get a hold of you at SAIT, LinkedIn. Do you have any preferred carrier pigeon, analog, maybe it's good to have an analog option in this modern age.
So really LinkedIn is probably the easiest way because I'm on there by my name, Jennie Gilbert, and you can message me in there. You can find examples of my work. And if you're interested in SAIT, you can find them there too. So it works all the way around.
I encourage people to reach out. I selfishly love these conversations every time, and I love the impact and the influence you have of making the world a better place, one leader and one team at a time.
Oh, I might have to steal that line too. Thanks, Tyler. It was absolutely
Not all heroes wear capes, Jennie. Not all heroes wear capes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.